Welcome back everyone to GGN. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2013. This is my website, ggnonline.net, global government news. And on YouTube, my channels are DDarko 2012 and DDarko 2013. I'm just going to continue here with Syria and give you some of the propaganda that's going out there and some alternative reasons why this is going on or taking place. As far as diversions and distractions. As Syria war escalates, Americans cool to U.S. intervention, says a Reuters poll. Americans strongly oppose U.S. intervention in Syria's what they call a civil war and believe Washington should stay out of the conflict, even if reports that Syrian government used deadly chemicals to attack civilians are confirmed. So like I said, there's a different rationale. There's people that understand what is taking place, that it's actually the United States government and taxpayers paying to arm terrorists to overthrow a sovereign government, basically to do many things, to run pipelines, to destabilize that region, which will not help Iran. It'll help Israel. Also, it'll create a bunch of refugees. They can set up a central, a non-sovereign central bank. But there's people that are aware of that, and then there's the people, and they're not for this intervention. And then there's the people that don't know what the hell is going on, but they're not for any intervention. But their rationale is, oh, we got to leave our heroic, patriotic troops at home this time and not get involved in this, not because it's wrong, but because they feel like they are this just, courageous, moral empire, right? And that they should just let these barbaric Muslims kill each other. That's the way they see it. So even the ones that aren't for it, they're not for it for kind of a messed up reason. So I almost wonder if it's because deep down, if they go out and say what they actually say and they support it, that their asses might actually get conscripted into this World War III possible scenario. So we have here that we covered last time in the last video. A senior U.S. official tells MSNBC News we're past the point of return, and U.S. airstrikes against Syrian targets appear inevitable within days. U.S. Air Force strikes on the Syrian territories may start from this Thursday, according to the American NBC News channel, quoting a U.S. government source on Tuesday. So it's all hearsay. They're saying if they do strike, that they'll last for about 3 days, will be limited and targeting specific points. But a senior official of the White House says U.S. strikes on Syria would not be limited. So it goes here that the regime is considering more than a single set of military action, and the options are not limited to just 1 day of strikes, he told the AP. Egypt rejects foreign military intervention in Syria, says Egyptian Foreign Ministry. Remember, Egypt is kind of becoming a failed state, and either way they're in the middle of a regime change. Egypt rejects military intervention in Syria as we believe a political solution is the only way out for the crisis, or out of the crisis. He said they condemned the U.S. of chemical weapons not only in Syria but strongly refuted regardless of whoever uses such weapons against civilians. From the 27th, the U.S., Britain, and Israel have used chemical weapons within the last 10 years. Those condemning Syria have themselves recently used chemical weapons. The U.S. used them against civilians in Iraq in 2004. There's all kinds of evidence of the results of that. Talking about birth defects. It says here, Israel also used white phosphorus in the 2009 Operation Cast Lead. Kind of interesting here, Israel ratified the Protocol 3 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, Protocol 3, which outlaws the use of incendiary devices in war in 2007, so it's a war crime. Moreover, a 1925 Geneva Protocol, which is different from this other one, prohibits the use in war of asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases. So it's interesting too, like back in World War II, you had the Russians were not party to this type of treaty, and so there was all kinds of atrocities carried out by Russia, the quote allies of the U.S. and the West, and they were never brought to justice. Let's not forget the U.S. spraying nearly 20 million gallons of material containing chemical herbicides in Vietnam. Never retired U.S. officer sounds like a CIA agent or some crap. 12 others arrested in Egypt's Sinai. So Israel carried out drone strikes recently in the Sinai Peninsula after the crisis or the destabilization in Egypt. A 58-year-old American carrying documents, data, and maps about the rest of the peninsula. So my first inclination was that he was heading up the rebels, or basically to arm rebels, prior to this possible strike. BBC News uses Iraq photo to illustrate Syrian massacre. It's talking about the fudging, right? The illusion. The BBC is facing criticism after it accidentally used a picture taken in Iraq in 2003 to illustrate the senseless massacre of children in Syria. And this was back in almost June of 2012 last year, so they do this stuff a lot. They're constantly trying to do this with the downing of a Turkish jet and that provoke them, you know, when the rebels launched mortars and killed a bunch of Turkish civilians over the border. I mean, blamed it on the Assad government. They thought that was going to start it, to get Turkey involved. Man whose WMD lies led to 100,000 deaths confesses all. The defector tells how U.S. officials sexed up his fictions to make the case for the 2003 invasion of Iraq from April 2012. U.S.-backed plan to launch chemical weapons attack on Syria and blame it on the Assad government, says report. I've covered this before, but the Obama regime gave the green light to chemical weapons attack plan in Syria that could be blamed on the Assad government and in turn spur international military action in Syria, the leaked documents show. UK drafts resolution blaming Assad for chemical weapons attack, and they're getting some opposition. See, it says Obama not yet made a decision on Syria as UK political woes stall intervention. Britain has drafted the UN Security Council resolution condemning the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons. In spite of uncertainty over who is behind last week's attack, Western powers are insisting the Syrian government was responsible and are already starting to craft legislation or orders. U.S. evidence of Syria's guilt, panicked phone calls. White House set to release evidence of nerve gas attacks. So there is no evidence yet, but they're going to go ahead and fabricate it from their, basically what they got from their Zionist Israeli Mossad buddies, or masters, I guess it depends. A U.S. government report to be released as soon as tomorrow will provide the final pieces of groundwork ahead of the expected strike on Syria. So, you're going to see it now, right? A timeline. It's going to set up a timeline. So these are all the ones that the rebels carried out against civilians and government forces. And they'll have a nice little timeline. They'll put it across CNN and Fox News and all them. So Russia started pulling its citizens out of the country. Also, I think China and Russia walked out of one of the UN Security Council resolution meeting. More propaganda. North Korea tried to ship gas masks to Syria, says a report. Turkey intercepted them, says a Jewish newspaper. Might as well be Japan newspaper. So I wouldn't really believe too much of this. But yeah, I guess if Turkey was funneling chemical weapons and the West was funneling chemical weapons into the hands of terrorists, the government may want to be able to have, and the civilians may want to have gas masks to protect themselves. This is so funny. It says here, if confirmed, the report would put North Korea in violation of UN sanctions. It would add further weight to assertions that Assad planned to use poison gas. So, but I guess you can just tie anything to North Korea, and that'll bring you down, for war crimes. U.S. Brookings wants to bleed Syria to death. This is from May 28, 2012. Middle East memo calls for ending ceasefire and purposely perpetuating violence. This is a Fortune 500 chaired and funded U.S. policy think tank. Some believe naively that Obama or America's elected representatives sit behind their desks late at night penning America's future. In reality, they're merely using their desks to rubber stamp what think tanks like Brookings pass to them. So which path to Persia? That's Iran. Options for a new American strategy towards Iran. And that's, of course, taking out Syria. And this was back in March of 2012. Saving Syria. They're going to save Syria. Assessing options for regime change. There you go. It's no secret that the humanitarian responsibility to protect, RP2, rights, R2P, sorry, rights to protect is a pretext for a long-planned regime change. That's another thing they tried before, early on, was the R2P. They didn't get it. Wall Street Journal says, whack al-Assad and his family. No joke. It says here that the Stevens character says, target Assad, a strike directed straight at the Syrian dictator and his family, is the only military option that could hasten the end of this, what they call, again, a civil war, which is an invasion by terrorist proxy forces funded by these countries. This is what's so sick and sad, is that these people that are going to do this in the name of humanitarianism are doing whatever they can, including bombing and carrying out chemical weapons attacks against civilians, are failing to get this regime change that they want, according to the U.S. policy think tank, Brookings Institute for Regime Change, so they can exploit the resources and all that other stuff. They're not getting what they want. So now they're going to just go ahead and start attacking their families. They did this to Libya's Gaddafi and his family. They did it to Saddam and his family, and they'll do it to whoever's next. So these are the democratic people. These are the people that represent the free America and the free West and democracy and capitalism and progress. They're very just humanitarians. The use of chemical weapons against one's own citizens plumbs depths of barbarity matched in recent history only by Saddam Hussein, which is funny because these same people gave him the weapons to carry out chemical war against Iran. So here we go. Here it is. A civilized world cannot tolerate. So these are what civilized people do. They bomb people and assassinate people's families. Here's more propaganda going out there. New York Times, Twitter, and Huffington Post appear to have been stolen. Their domains appear to have been stolen by the Syrian Electronic Army. So it's funny because they say here, or someone trying very hard to be them. Can you say Israel, Zionist, Mossad? Or CIA, NSA? Biggest rocket in the U.S. has been launched on Wednesday. Giant rocket more than 21 stories tall launched into space on Wednesday from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, a covert mission for the U.S. government's National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, spying. SASSA, the military's new satellite self-defense system, is ready to go to space. It's actually called the Self-Awareness Space Situational Awareness System. Alert operators of potential space-borne threat to satellites and perhaps even take kinetic action should a satellite become threatened. There's that word, kinetic. It's amazing how one common denominator in the Middle East wars is ignored. The only nations left there with their own central banks are Syria and Iran. And the only other two are the U.S. state of North Dakota and South Africa. Yesterday, the 27th stock slump on Syria's airstrike talk. Dow Jones off 170 points and NASDAQ drops 2%. Talking about short selling, someone taking advantage of this. Stocks gain as markets temper Syria war uncertainties. Their view is that Syria is likely to play out similar to Libya, anger, fighting, but limited disruption to the markets in both time and size. Syria sends oil to two-year high, $150 spike has been feared. Says here for WTI, West Texas, the supplier, it's the highest price since 2011. Israel has granted oil exploration rights inside Syria and the occupied Golan Heights. This is what I was just talking about. So they said their success will depend on access to the expertise of the oil and gas industry and to the financial markets. This is, of course, Rothschild and Rupert Murdoch are part of this. Rebels cut regime's oil supply line to Aleppo in Syria. They also showed them executing an Alawite preacher. Smuggling bonanza on Turkish border as Syrian war drags on. And what are they carrying? Fuel smuggling into Turkey from over the border. Iraqi Kurds say new oil pipeline to Turkey to start soon. Kurdistan has stopped exporting through the central government-controlled pipeline. So it says here they've been able to truck only small amounts to Turkey on road tankers. The Syrian opposition, or terrorists, armed to thwart construction of Iran, Iraq, Syria gas pipeline, the geopolitics of gas and the Syrian crisis, and also is talking about natural gas exports to Turkey seen by 2016 for Kurdistan. Turkey is secretly building presence in Iraqi Kurdistan oil industry, trying to wean itself off from imports from Russia and Iran. This is probably what's going to happen, balkanization. They're going to break it up between three states, Kurdistan, the Alawite Assad type government in the north. They'll give a little Sunni Salafate a reward for the terrorists, mercenaries. Henry Kissinger, balkanized and broken up Syria, the best possible outcome. These are the same people who plan and dream up these types of states like Iraq and all that. Egypt may become failed state, which, like I said, is the point. Crisis in Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, the plan to divide and conquer the Middle East, and why all roads lead to Iran. Or which path to Persia, right? Libyan army deploys a special anti-terror force to secure Tripoli. Speaking of oil, Libya losing control of its oil fields to jihadist groups. Again, the same ones that help overthrow Gaddafi, so the internationalists, globalists can get control of their oil resources. And they put a puppet regime in there, kind of like in Iraq. That's why Iraq is mad about what's happening in Kurdistan. On Monday, Iraq bombings leave 76 dead and 227 wounded. On Wednesday, 86 dead, 263 wounded. Thank you.